So this is a little bit of a different topic. Rarely do we see NHL players, let alone NHL stars, actually go out there and admit where it is they thought they would play NHL hockey. But it turns out that's exactly what we have gotten. And it comes to us in the form of an interview by Spittin' Chicklets. This show is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Go out there and check out the first link in the description if you want to save some money in your VPN, get some free months, and support this YouTube channel in the process. But I also wanted to leave links in the description to two other pages. We have ourselves a Spittin' Chicklets interview and an article which we're going to pull the quotes from. Because today we are revisiting one of the biggest trades the NHL has pretty much ever seen. And it happened a few days ago. We saw Mikko Rantanen get traded over to the Carolina Hurricanes in a three-team deal wherein the Colorado Avalanche received forward Martin Necas. Now, Necas has had a really interesting career up to this point, and we've been talking about him for quite a bit over the past year and a little bit even beyond that, because Necas last season for Carolina wasn't really doing all too hot. He had dipped from a 71-point campaign to a 53-point campaign in 77 games. He was a trade chip for most of last season. They wanted to send this guy away, and it just didn't happen. He needed a new contract. The Hurricanes didn't really want to keep him around. They were giving ice time to other guys like Seth Jarvis, for example, and Necas was taking some sort of a back seat in the Hurricane system. But eventually, they worked out their differences, a trade never came, and Necas ended up re-signing with Carolina on a 2-year, $6.5 million AAV contract. It was seen as a steal. Because right away, at the start of the 24-25 season, Martin Necas, with his blonde hair and everything, ended up being the top point producer in the National Hockey League. He came out guns a-blazing in the 24-25 season. I mean, just look at the gosh darn point production here up until November 27th. In fact, we can use the archive.org machine to help us out here. On November 28th, 2024, Martin Necas was second in the NHL in points, just one behind Kirill Kaprizov. He was above Jack Eichel, Nathan MacKinnon, Nikita Kucherov, everybody else. He came out guns a-blazing in the National Hockey League. But his second half of the season started to dip a little bit. There were a bunch of pointless games thrown in there around December, and you started to see him really slow down his production, which is why we saw Necas get traded over to Colorado. There also was some cost certainty there. The Avalanche didn't just get Necas, they also got another player and a bunch of picks and stuff, so it was alright from the Colorado point of view, and now Martin Necas has 8 points in 7 games with the Avs after posting up 55 points in 49 Hurricanes games. He's on pace for 92 points this season, which would be a career high by far. He's really showing off that he can be a top-line point-producing threat. But this interview on Spittin' Chicklets, which will be linked in the description, goes over how Martin Necas said he didn't really know where his NHL career would go back in 2017. He was drafted in that season at the 12th overall spot by the Carolina Hurricanes, but it should be noted that back in the 16-17 year, Necas was ranked as highly as number 9 by future considerations. There were options for him to go other places aside Carolina. And it's in this video interview where Necas reveals that he thought he actually was going to go over to Detroit. This article on RedWingsInsider.com goes out there and transcribes the comments here. I had no idea who would take me. The only team that I kind of thought, and I talked a lot with before the draft, was Detroit. But I found out they wanted a bigger guy, so they got Michael Rasmussen. I was so happy to get drafted and was quite nervous. Former NHLer Paul Bissonnette chimed in with a single-word response when Necas said he found out the Wings wanted Rasmussen instead. Whoops. For comparison, Rasmussen has 134 points in 366 games, while Necas has 303 points in 417 games. And then the article goes out there and rubs some salt on the wound. Take a look at this. The Wings also notoriously blew an opportunity to select University of Michigan defenseman Quinn Hughes the following year, opting instead for Filip Zadina, who became one of the all-time biggest draft busts in team history. Hughes, meanwhile, is the captain of the Canucks and won the Norris Trophy as the NHL's top D-man last year. Yeah, talk about salt in the wound, eh? Maybe we needed a bit of a parental advisory warning on that. But still, Martin Necas is one of these guys that didn't really have the highest draft stock coming into the 2017 draft, but he was good enough to go top 15. And Carolina, with their emphasis on skill and what it was that they thought Necas brought to the table, hey, they decided this was the guy, and he ended up getting 300 plus points for them over the next few years. Necas certainly is a better player than Michael Rasmussen. Even Necas last year, when he went through a little bit of a slump. Even Necas in the second half of this year, who was so much worse than the first half of the year. Okay, maybe that's a little bit harsh. He has really started to find his game one more time alongside of Nathan McDaddy McKinnon, which, then again, who wouldn't? But at the end of the day, this really does go to show that even though sometimes you can see the tea leaves fall, you can have these conversations, you can have names being circulated in the media. Oh yeah, Ken Holland is meeting with this guy. Oh, he likes this guy a lot. He's talking to him a bunch. It's very apparent that even though sometimes that happens, you end up seeing an entirely different result actually take place. Had the Wings drafted Martin Necas instead of Michael Rasmussen, sure, Rasmussen today is fine. He's an alright player, big guy, he's starting to use his size more, and really establish dominance, more so than he has in the past. But Martin Necas, oh man, imagine that guy in the Red Wings top 6. He can play center. So imagine having a first line, Kasper, Larkin, Raymond, and then your second line is DeBrincat, Necas, and Kane. Necas is on pace for 90 points this year. That guy would be incredibly great with the Detroit Red Wings right now, and I know it's not as simple as saying, okay, you can't just take a guy and how good he is right now and copy and paste him onto whatever team it is this time around, because who knows, if the Wings did draft Necas, like Necas was thought to believe he might have been drafted by, who knows if they would have developed him the exact same way that Carolina did. Sure, the Hurricanes saw potential in him, they gave him a chance, he was good, he fulfilled the status, now he's a stud. But if Detroit drafted him, who knows if they would have done the same thing. The Wings had a really bad time developing prospects from 2016 up until whatever. Heck, even 2015. They had Svechnikov, and then they had Dennis Chalowski, and I guess Philip Hronek was actually good. Yeah, no, Hronek was a great pickup. But of course, he's not in Detroit anymore. Rasmussen is fine. I guess 2018 was okay. Like, obviously, the big standout in 2018 was Filip Zadina, but the other guys, I mean, Joe Veleno and Berggren are regular Red Wings now, so I guess that sort of worked out. And then things started to really fall into place afterwards with Seider and Raymond, and inevitably Simon Edvinsson. But Martin Necas, the guy said himself he felt like the Wings were going to draft him, but they didn't. They wanted size instead. I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. If the Red Wings made a really big mistake here, if diverting from expectations and not selecting Martin Necas was the right call here. Obviously, it's difficult to have any conclusions because development takes different ways in different teams, but I do want to get that out there because I did think it was an interesting enough conversation point to bring up on the channel. So thoughts in the comment section below about Martin Necas, how he felt like he was going to get drafted by Detroit. Did the Wings make a mistake? Was he a better player? Would he have been better in Detroit now? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.